Hello, this is Ansky, and this is my first video for PokerSavvy. I think most of the time you're going to see me making no limit cash videos, but I am something of a tournament player as well, so right now I'm doing a video myself in the PokerStars Super Tuesday. It's a weekly $1,000 tournament. Right now there's about 99 players left. The money starts at 45, and I have a below average stack. So hopefully I'll last long enough to make a full video and just some pointers on how to play with various stack sizes and such. Right now I've been pretty active at this table, so I'm not going to be going too crazy or anything. I've stolen the blinds quite a few times, and I restole on Brett H over there. When he raised the button, I shoved when it was my big blind for 20 big blinds. So because of that, I'm going to sit back a little bit right now. More so than probably in any other game, tournaments are very much about flow and texture of the table based on how you've been playing the last few rounds, basically. Oftentimes, though, it could just be if you played one crazy hand, an hour ago, a player might remember that, and a lot of times they'll just make a huge read based on something they've seen you done in the past. So it's always important to have a good mind for how you think the other players view you at the table. I think okay, Brodock had quads. I'm gonna look at that hand history to see how he played it, because that was kind of odd, and I also want to see what Brett H had. Brett H is a pretty tight player. I don't quite know what he would have there, but I don't really see the action fully. So it looks like Brodock limped in small blind with kings, so I'm going to make a note of that. Alright, and let's get that hand history back up. Okay, so he led for pot on the flop, but kind of small on the turn, then bombed it on the river. Looks like Brett Ace called down with Ace-9. That seems kind of bad. Also, I think he really should have raised pre-flop. Can't be results oriented and say, oh, he would have gotten himself into shit because Brodock had kings. It's not like Brett Ace knows that he has kings there. He can't really make that read. Overall, Brodock kind of played it silly. Probably would have just raised it pre-flop if I were him. I just want to make a note of the fact that a lot of players really look for spots to re-steal in tournaments. Now, let's just ignore the fact that I got min re-raised. Let's say it was just Shoota68 who raised to me. This would be a really bad spot to try to pull a move on him. The fact is, because he raised from early position and he raised 4x, that's a big tell, I think, a lot of times on players, especially more inexperienced and not such good players, is that when they raise 4x, oftentimes it may not even be that important what they have. It just means that they're way more committed to the hand and much less folding equity. I mean, okay, yeah, then Jack. I mean, his play is obviously awful there, but I just think in general you want to kind of shy away from putting big moves on players when they've raised 4x. All right, so I'm at a new table, and I know a couple of these guys. Matt G 1983 is a pretty solid tournament player. He's definitely on the tighter side. He's a pocket fives guy, but he's not like a below above or Bodog or any of those pocket fives guys. He's much more on the tighter side. I mean, he'll mix it up sometimes, but he plays a much more solid game. JP 5-time is a pretty solid player. I've played 10-20 with him, cash games, but I'm not so sure about him as a tournament player, how good he is, how bad he is, whatever. Alright, now, I guess in between hands I should just kind of talk about tournaments in general and strategies and such. In this stage, where I am right now, I can still afford to do things like raising to try to steal the blinds, and oftentimes I might even raise in situations with any two cards. But when I start to get lower, if you see me around like 4,500 and the blinds are 153, you really have to tighten up, because you don't want to make a raise and then have to fold to a re-raise, because you're going to be cutting such a huge part of your stack, and if players are good and they know you're raising light, then they're going to start re-raising you pretty liberally. Now here I'm going to make a raise. It's a pretty standard raise with my stack in my hand. Because I don't know any of these players, I'm probably just going to fold to a re-raise. There might be a couple of players who I would actually think about calling a shove against, if they were really crazy and aggressive pre-flop. But as it was, that was a pretty standard raise and then fold to a re-raise situation. I feel like a lot of times, like I was saying, when you have 15 big blinds, 12 big blinds, even a little bit more, even when it's just basically when you get close to 20 that I think you can start opening up. But when you're under 20 big blinds, a lot of players still do things like raising with, you know, suited connectors and low pairs and things like that, just because they don't realize that the value of their hand in those situations very often is irrelevant. I mean, believe it or not, this is not such a bad spot for a steal because of the stack sizes behind me. JB5 time is not very likely to re-steal on. I mean, I'm going to fold, but it's kind of close to an okay re-stealing situation. I mean, okay raise with any two situation. The problem is there's too many big stacks behind me, and I think some of them are kind of donkish, so I don't want to try to get too involved there. But if there were more tight, solid players behind me, that would, with the stack sizes involved, that would have been an okay spot. Maybe an okay spot to try to take it down pre-flop with a steal. And just to go back to what I was saying, a lot of players, when they have 12, 13, 14, 15 big blinds, they're just doing things like opening suited connectors because, you know, ooh, I'm gonna play 6-7 suited because it's a good deceptive hand, and I heard that on ESPN or something, or some bullshit like that. The truth is, a hand like pocket 3s, pocket 6s, pocket 7s even in early position, and hands like 8-9 suited, their value goes like absolutely falls through the floor when you're playing shorter, especially when you're you have 15 big blinds or something. You're only going to deal with a re-steal, as in somebody's gonna come over the top and put you all in, or they're going to fold. That's the vast majority of the time. That's what's going to happen, at least at the higher buy-ins. I haven't played a low stakes tournament pretty long time, but at the 1Ks, at the 500s, maybe not 500s because they're huge fields, but at the smaller high stakes tournaments like the Stars 1K, the 100 rebuy, 50 rebuy even, and some of the other bigger Stars tournaments, especially when you get late on, it gets very aggressive. You're really just not going to see a lot of crazy play. I mean, you're not really going to see a lot of passive play. I mean, right here I raised Queen Jack of Hearts, and I got a pretty big. This is a monster flop by all standards. I think this is kind of close between trying to check to induce a bet here, or betting a good amount that'll let him know that he can still raise me, and I think he has folding equity. Because when I bet 1,500, that's still 47.80 behind, so he can easily think, if I re-raise him here, he can fold, especially if he thinks I could have, pocket 7s, pocket 8s, pocket 10s. In this instance, he folded. It's a pretty standard spot there to bet, though. Though I don't mind checking sometimes, especially against the right type of opponent.